Good evening. I hope everybody's having a good week. Jimmy Cosenza here in Chicago. Today, I want to take a little detour from the Chicago mob trial stories, and we're going to talk about one of the most brutal, violent crimes in the Chicagoland area. We're going to talk about the Brown's Chicken Massacre in Palatine, Illinois. Now, most of us from the city of Chicago and the surrounding suburbs will never forget that. So this is for some of my viewers who've never heard about this horrific crime. But before we get into it, I want to thank everybody for supporting my channel. If you like my Chicago mob trial stories, please hit the like button, subscribe, share with your friends. I appreciate all the comments. My channel is only intended to educate and entertain people and give them an insight on what it's like to be inside that courtroom. I was very fortunate to sit in on 25 plus federal trials. Most of them were mob trials. Actually, went to a couple state trials. I'm not a reporter. I'm not a journalist. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a mob guy. I'm not a cop. Just a court buff. These trials are open to the public. Any one of us can go at any time. For example, the Michael Madigan trial is going on right now. I'll probably go to that trial. I'll probably wait and go to the closing arguments, or when the government's star witness, Danny Solis, is on stand. He actually wore a wire on Mike Madigan. So I'll probably check that out. But that trial is boring. There's nothing like a major mob trial, right? Unfortunately, there's not too many mob trials left. But if there ever are, keep in mind, it's open to the public. Anybody can go. My channel is intended to entertain and educate people. Like I said, I mean, no disrespect to any of the outfit guys, family, friends, or associates. If there's ever a video that upsets you, just let me know. One push of the button and it's gone. We got Thanksgiving coming up. Before you know, it'll be Christmas and then New Year's. Another day gone. So let's make the most of our time together. Let's get into it. We're going to go back. I'm going to take you guys back to January 8th, 1993. It was a brutal, cold winter night in Chicago. And this is an actual crime scene photo of the brutal Brown's Chicken Massacre, where 7 lives were brutally shot and killed. And the lowlifes that participated in this brutal, heinous crime are these scumbags here on the left. You got Juan Aluna, and the piece of shit on the right, James Degorski. These guys were childhood friends. They grew up together, probably dropped out of high school together. They planned to do a score, and they bragged that they wanted to do something big. Now, at some point during a routine robbery, I don't remember whose idea it was, but they lured all 7 employees of the restaurant into a walk-in freezer, and they shot and executed everyone there for no apparent reason at all. They ended up stealing a little under $2,000. These are the victims. You got the owners of the restaurant, Lynn and Richard Eldenfett. The wife was 49 years old. Richard was 50 years old. You got Mike Casto. He was only 16 years old. Guadalupe Maldon was 46 years old. Tom Menez, 32 years old. Mark Nelson was 31. Rocky Solis was only 17. These poor people were brought into a walk-in freezer and executed. The owner's wife, her throat was slit from ear to ear. They literally gave her the Frank Calabrese necktie. This crime went unsolved for, I think, 9-10 years. People were scared to leave their houses. This was the first time ever multiple police departments worked together. They collaborated together and formed the very first strike force. They had over 100 police officers working closely together, following up on all leads, trying to find out what monsters could massacre 7 innocent people like that. But it was the first time they ever assembled a strike task force. Police stations from all different suburbs, including the city of Chicago, were all determined to catch these monsters. God bless each and every one of them and their families. Now, I remember my girlfriend and I, it was like 2 weeks later, we went past the scene right here in Palatine, not too far off of Highway 90, and they had a little tribute there where they had letters, poetry, flowers, stuffed animals, poetry that they left for the 7 individuals that were brutally slaughtered. Went on for several years, I think 9-10 years, until 2002, when this lady here, Ann Lockett, she testified that on the night of the murders, when Juan Luna and James Degorski came back to the apartment, they were all hyped up and excited, and that they all sat around and were drinking and getting high. And she testified that they bragged about doing something big and that she would see it later on the news. They also said if she told anybody, they would kill her. So this woman kind of pulled a Red Womette. She had information on a brutal crime. This was 7 people that were massacred. She sat on it for 9-10 years before she came forward. She claims the reason she never came forward sooner is she was scared to death. If I remember correctly, they didn't charge her with anything, but she testified against both of those guys in court, saying that they bragged about the murder to her and threatened her life. Also, they found DNA from one bite of a chicken leg left over by Juan Luna. Juan Luna took one bite of a chicken leg, left his DNA there. They froze it. It took 6 years to get the DNA and then another 3 years for a match. So 9 years later, 2002, the DNA left over on a chicken leg, one bite of a chicken leg, linked Juan Luna to the crime scene. If I remember correctly, Juan Luna used to work at that Brown's Chicken. Here's this piece of shit in custody. They arrested him in Carpentersville, and him and his lover, him and his best friend, James Degorski, were arrested the same day. Eventually, after a couple hours being in the interrogation room, when they explained to Juan Luna that the girlfriend confessed and that they found his DNA on the chicken leg, this piece of shit here confessed to the Brown's Chicken murder. Him and Degorski were immediately arrested. Thank God. James Degorski was found guilty of the massacre of killing 7 people. I don't remember which coward slit the lady's throat, the owner's throat. Not sure if it was Juan Luna or James Degorski. They actually blamed it on each other. But they were convicted in 2009, sentenced to life in prison without parole. They were both death penalty cases, but not all the jury members could agree to send those monsters to death row. But if there's ever a better case for death row, this would be it. But an interesting thing is, while James Degorski was locked up in the county jail, the guards beat the shit out of this guy, fractured all kinds of bones in his face. They really did a number on him. As we all know, in the Cook County Jail, one of the most violent, corrupt, largest, oldest jails in the county, right up there with Rikers Island and LA County Jail, either the inmates are going to get you or the guards, or sometimes both. In this case, the corrupt Cook County Sheriff guards beat the shit out of James Degorski, and his family sued. They sued the Cook County Jail, the guards that were responsible, and he was awarded close to $500,000. Now, he'll never get out of prison, but that's a ton of money for his family and for his commissary. He's pretty much set for life. And what the coward did, he probably put money on other inmates' commissary for protection, because a guy like this isn't going to last very long in the Cook County Jail. But that's what happened. Convicted murderer gets violated and abused by the Cook County Sheriff, ends up suing. And that happens a lot, right? With the Chicago Police and the Cook County Sheriff's Department, there's so many cases where these guys get beat up, abused, where they end up suing for hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars, cost the city millions of dollars. Both Juan Luna and James Degorski, after they shipped out of the county jail, they were sentenced to Statesville prison right here in Joliet. This is where, John Gacy spent time here, Sam Giancana, Al Capone, Richard Speck, you name it, the worst of the worst. This is the perfect home for Juan Luna and James Degorski. And then they gave him a little flight therapy. They ended up going to Menard. Menard, I think, is a medium or maximum security prison, very dangerous prison. This is where an old friend of mine, Rocky LaMantia, associate of the 26th Street crew, this is where he spent time when he was the getaway driver when they robbed the pawn shop. But I bring up Menard is because this is where Juan Luna and James Degorski are going to spend the rest of their life, suffering every single day. And I remember Rocky, when I seen him when he was fresh out of jail at the Taylor Street Fest, he bragged to me that he served time with these two lowlifes. And Rocky had a job in the kitchen, and Rocky said that he used to spit in their food. Now, I don't know if that's true. Rocky had all kinds of stories. I never really knew if he was bullshitting me or not, but Rocky was in Menard at the same time as these two lowlifes. And knowing Rocky, if he had the chance, I wouldn't be surprised if he did spit in their food. Now we'll talk about the aftermath, right? After the massacre, the restaurant was leveled, which is the proper thing to do. Anytime a murder takes place in a commercial residential building, they should just level the place. But after that, talk about bad PR for Brown's Chicken. There was close to 100 Brown's Chicken restaurants in the city of Chicago, mostly in the surrounding suburbs, that all closed. They also lost 40% in sales. I was a big fan of the Brown's Chicken back then. There's not too many of them left. But I will admit, most of the time when I think about Brown's Chicken, I can't help but think about the Brown's Chicken massacre. God bless the 7 lives that were brutally killed. But let's do a quick recap. Again, cold winter night, January 1993. 2 childhood friends decide to rob Brown's Chicken. Now, of all places to rob, why would you rob a fast food restaurant? How much money can possibly be in that cash register? To show you the mindset of these two lowlifes. You think they would rob a bank or an armored car or have some balls and rob a drug dealer or a stash house. Rather than just rob them, take the money and run. By the way, they only got away with like $1,900, less than $2,000. They had all 7 employees, including the owner and his owner's wife. They brought him in a walk-in freezer and shot and killed him. The owner's wife, as I mentioned, was 49 years old, and they slit her throat from ear to ear. Here's the little memorial they had. And thank God for this woman. I'm not sure if I would have charged her or not, but Ann Lockett, after 9 years of being in fear of her life, she decided to come forward and testified that the 2 of them bragged about the murder and doing something big. Juan Luna, the genius that he was, took 1 bite off a chicken leg and left his DNA there. 9 years later, it matched. Luna, when pressed with the evidence against him, folded, confessed to the murder. He was probably the one that slit that lady's throat. Why they were locked up together, sentenced to life in prison, why they were locked up together in the county, James Degorski must have got smart with one of the Cook County sheriffs. They beat him to a pulp. James Degorski's family sued the county for $500,000. All kinds of, the Chicago Police Department and the Cook County Sheriff are constantly being sued, mostly by black and brown people. They were sentenced to Stateville, ended up in Menard, same place as Rocky did. Rocky made it home, passed away shortly after his time in prison. And then again, the aftermath. This is an actual photo when they demoed the Brown's Chicken Massacre. They closed over 100 Brown's Chicken restaurants, and sales went down 30%. That's my short story in the Brown's Chicken Massacre. And usually when there's major crimes like that committed, somebody knows about it. You know, these criminals aren't the smartest guys. They usually slip and talk about it, especially when they're high or they had a few drinks. But for that woman to hold on to that information for 9 years, you know, I understand she was scared to death, but thank God she did come forward, and thank God for DNA. Stay tuned. I got more Chicago mob trial stories coming up for you. We're going to do a story about the Chop Shop Wars. We're going to talk about Rat of the Month. We're going to talk about Lenny Patrick's transcripts, Nick Calabrese transcripts. If you like my Chicago mob trial stories, hit the like button, subscribe, share with your friends. And for you haters out there, put out the cigarette, go take the dog for a walk, get yourself some little baggies, and walk around the neighborhood picking up dog shit. Take the old lady to Walmart. She's probably starving. Ciao.